This is the Lombardi Line with Michael Lombardi and Patrick Meagher on VSiN.
Okay, let's go indeed. That's one regular season game down, Michael Lombardi. 271 to go as we welcome you in a Friday edition of the Lombardi Line presented by BetMGM. This is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. I'm Patrick Meagher. Of course, he is Michael Lombardi, who had a late night last night out the Borgata. How are we feeling?
We feel great, Patrick. It was awesome. It was a great night at the Borgata. A lot of people in the sports bar, a lot of people excited about the season, and had a great conversation with the Wayne Corbett, the pride of Hofstra, which is actually called the Pride, and the great Howard Eskin, and, of course, our man Thomas Gable. So it was fun. It was a good night. It was an interesting game, to say the least.
Yeah, we've got pictures from the event, which we're going to show a little bit later, just quickly on the gambling side. And then I want to get to a tweet from M. Lombardi NFL to kick off the conversation. So the Bills ended up closing 2. Remember, it was sitting 2.5 when you and I were sitting here yesterday. Ended up closing 2 and 52 on the total. So the Bills cover as favorites, and we stay under the posted total. Here's a tweet, M. Lombardi NFL to kick off the conversation, because the Bills, well, as we know, they were awesome. The 31-10 win. Josh Allen was great. We'll go ahead and throw up Michael's tweet, who said essentially the Bills were tremendous. And we don't have the tweet right now, but you just said it better than anybody. I mean, the Bills yesterday were about as good as it gets. Buffalo was amazing last night, lived up to the hype of the offseason. Hard team to play, even harder to beat. Welcome back, NFL, Michael.
Yeah, I think that what I saw last night was, and I'm not, look, there's 17 weeks to go in the season. It's a long year. But what we witnessed last night was a team that is going to be challenging to beat. You can't game plan to beat the Bills. You have to strategize to beat the Bills. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you're going to have to coordinate offense, defense, and the kicking game. And you're going to have to tie all those things together, because if you don't, they're just too explosive offensively. And I think ultimately the way they've run this offense since we talked about since the Tampa game, where Josh Allen, again, leading ball carrier with 10 carries, only 5 incomplete passes during the game. You're going to have to strategize 3 ways to play this team in every single section. It's not going to be, well, we're going to game plan against their defense, we're going to game plan against their offense. No. It's got to be tied together, because they're too good. They are too good. And the Rams, to me, again, I'm not overreacting, but the Rams looked really slow on offense, and they couldn't create. This is the big thing. They could not create a negative play with their defense, which would put Buffalo behind the down and distance chains. Buffalo was always in a really comfortable down and distance. The other part I think that's really important for in-game betting, I thought from the first quarter, Buffalo was in control and in the lead. At halftime, Buffalo was in control, tied. I think Buffalo was in that game. Buffalo never lost control of the game, no matter what happened on the turnovers.
Totally agree. I totally agree. Going into the second half, by the way, that number was a pick 'em. So you understand what I'm telling you? Essentially, hey, who do you think is going to win? And as you said, pro tip, the Bills were in complete control. I mean, they dominated in the second half, 21-0, but Allen, 3 touchdowns, runs for 1. The Rams were lucky to be in the mix at the half.
They were really lucky to be in the mix, and my handicapping was completely wrong from a Rams standpoint. I thought Buffalo would score 30. I just thought the Rams would score 32. I thought the over was in play. The Rams turned it over. They never had their offensive line, which we were talking about as a concern, but they were able to muddle through it last year. Got exposed. I mean, it got really exposed last night in all facets. I mean, Phillips, the big kid from the Cardinals who was a cap casualty, he was dominant inside. I mean, they lost Ed Oliver, and it didn't bother them at all during the game. So, to me, if I'm Sean McVay today, it's one game. I'm concerned I couldn't get the ball to Allen Robinson. I'm concerned I got beat up front. I really got beat up front. And I'm concerned about Matthew Stafford. I mean, he's too experienced to have that many interceptions in an opening game against a team that you knew coverage-wise what they were going to be in.
I would imagine this next tweet I'm going to show you, and I want you to react, would make the Bills coaching staff aroused. It is a Friday. I can use the word aroused. Let's go ahead and throw it up. The Bills sacked Matthew Stafford 7 times without blitzing on a single play. My goodness. Buffalo 7 sacks with 4 fewer pass rushers is tied for the 4th most in a game since 16. That defensively, you don't have to bring anyone, is as good as it gets.
Yeah, and I mean that's the key to football, right? When your defensive front can dominate. And a lot of this is because of the inability of, Noteboom looked like he was really concerned about edge, and then when Von Miller powered him, he wasn't ready for it. And Stafford, to me, did not look like he could move as well as he has in the past. He didn't buy that second look. And, I don't want to read too much into his elbow injury, but I don't think he had great velocity on the football. I thought the field was shrunk down a little bit. I was concerned about it. I thought really, my number one takeaway from that game last night was how slow the Rams looked on offense. How slow they looked. There was no explosiveness. They had one play of 28 yards. The next explosive play was a run for 18. They had nothing in their repertoire that was an explosive play to move the ball down the field. They looked slow, Patrick.
They did look slow, which was interesting because it's kind of a contradiction. We talk about McVay not using anybody in the pre, yet he had been so successful for 5 straight seasons. There did, again, I don't want to use the cliche hangover, but there was a little bit of stuck in muddishness, both offensively and defensively for the Rams last night.
Yeah, they looked real. They looked it. They looked the whole way. They could never. And part of the problem was they couldn't create a negative play. And credit the Bills' play calling. Credit the Bills' ability to stay ahead of the down and distance. Right? The Bills. Allen got rid of the ball quickly. He was deadly accurate. The most accurate I've seen him. Really, he was sensational. And the fact that he is their leading rusher with 10 carries. He's such a dynamic player in this single wing version of the offense that they run that it's a hard game. If you don't create a negative play, if you don't get a holding call, or if you don't get a sack on first down where you put him behind the down and distance, they're going to be able to get 10 yards on 3 plays unless you do that. And all I kept writing in my notes were Buffalo needs to create a negative play. The Rams need to create a negative play. They couldn't do it.
I wrote down in my notes 5-hour energy. It looked like the Bills were jacked. Do you know what I'm saying? It looks like they were redlining. Even watching them come out of the tunnel where there was almost like this sense of we did it for the Rams. It's just this red line nature of the Bills really stood out to me. And it's what we've been talking about in the summer where they're just jacked up even in practice fighting.
Yeah, I don't see them letting down. I think they know they're good. I think they know they have a standard they have to meet. And I think it's going to be hard to beat them. I think you're going to have to play a game, like I mentioned earlier to start this A segment, is you're going to have to play a 3-dimensional game to beat them. You're just not going to go in there and beat them because they have a bad day. They're good enough to recover. Look, they were good enough to recover from 3 turnovers and win by 21 points. Think about that. This game probably gets into the high 40s if they don't turn the damn thing over. They turned it over, in red zone turnovers especially. So, look, I'm not exaggerating. I think Buffalo did exactly what we thought they were capable of doing. I'm very disappointed that the Rams couldn't move the football at all. That McVay had a whole offseason to study, and this was the best he came up with without anything. If you're Allen Robinson, you're saying, wait a minute, I was supposed to make an impact on this game. I never did.
Your MVP favorite coming into the season, Josh Allen, was exemplary. Michael Lombardi, 26 of 31, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 1 not his fault. We get that. He led the team in rushing with 56. Last year, Von Miller won a championship with the Rams. This year, he's with the Bills, and he talked about Josh Allen.
He's a creature. There he is right there, man. He's a creature, man. He's good, man. He's the leader of our team. We kind of follow his lead, man. He's a tough guy. Out there running guys over, stiff-arming guys, man. Had a lot of success tonight, and we just kind of fed off each other, man. And those are the games that you want to play in. And one thing that we preach to each other, there's a championship fight coming in here. They're going to make plays. They got Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey. They're going to make plays, but we got to make our plays as well. It was a heavyweight championship fight. They hit us, we hit them. And we was able to, come out on top.
Von Miller had a big night, Michael Lombardi, against his former team. But, social and everybody just talking about Allen because Allen was about as good as it gets.
Yeah, he was. And I don't think the Rams punched back. I think if you're Sean McVay watching that tape, you're saying, wait a minute, we didn't give this our best punch. We're going to need to get better than this. And they played like they did opening day last year where they were not executing very well, yet they scored 34 points against a bad Bears team. And, they got to go back to the grind. And the season's not lost. There's a lot of games to play, but their offensive line is concerning. It's concerning inside. It's concerning on the tackle position and their lack of explosiveness. I mean, that's got to worry you. It's got to worry you tremendously that they couldn't make explosive plays in the game and match. And look, Matthew Stafford, I ranked him on my Blues tips and red chip from last year. I read him as a red chip player. He played nothing like a red chip player last night. Now, is that the elbow? Is that the Buffalo defense? I mean, you got to watch the tape to determine, but it was concerning last night in all phases. I mean, they couldn't get it going. They tried to run the ball, get 2 yards. Now they're in 2nd and 8. They couldn't make an explosive play. They were struggling. And then he makes some really bad throws, Patrick.
Let's go ahead and roll Ken Dorsey. That is Josh Allen talking about Dorsey, who takes over the play calling. Then we'll come back and get Michael's take. Go ahead and roll it, Stephen.
We hurt ourselves a lot in that first half. There's a lot to learn from, but that second half, that's who we want to be, going out there and executing the way, we expect ourselves to execute. I thought Coach Dorsey, called a heck of a game. It's his first live, action. So I'm proud of him for handling the situations how he did. But again, we were 90% on third down. Like that's a recipe for success. And again, 4 turnovers, that's way too many. So we've got a lot to clean up. But like Vaughn said, we'll celebrate this one. It's hard to win in this league, especially against good teams, and that's a really good team we just played.
You have 30 seconds to react, Michael. What do you got?
I thought he called a great game. He played Canadian football. 10 third downs is not a lot in an NFL game. And the bigger thing was he had no negative plays. One of the things that gets you is negative plays. 2nd and 14, hard, right? No negative plays. They moved the chains. It was a well-called game. They didn't miss Dayball last night at all.
Yep, well put. A good stat from Stephen Bond. The Bills did not punt for the 4th time in their last 6 games. How about that for offensive efficiency?
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.